to the already not yet.
Know thy greatest adversary. One must understand that our adversaries do not play by laws and rules, especially our laws and rules. However, they are determined to use our rules and laws against us, even as they seek to replace and impose their own versions and interpretations of them.
You know, it's amazing to me how little we actually think about what we do in this country. You know, I'm a harsh critic of China in a number of different ways, for a number of different reasons. But I will tell you this. One of the things that they have done is they've made use of the very things that you have failed to use and do rightly here. Now, the question can be asked if how they've used it has been correct and good. But nation states, like people, need to self-reflect. They need to see what they do that is good and what they do that is not. And they need to be humble enough to learn the lessons from it. All nations are mixtures, just like people. But what we have currently in America is we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. And that is what is really causing your biggest problems. And it's increasing your vulnerabilities, which of course your competitors and your enemies are going to exploit. If you don't understand that, then not only are you not conscious about the reality in which you live and where the nation's at, but you're also foolish. You know why I can say that you have so much confusion here without going into great detail? Because where there is fear, there is confusion. And where there is confusion, there is fear. And when there is fear and confusion, somebody has sown the wind. And when you sow the wind, what you bring about, what you create conditionally, what you're creating conditionally is a situation for chaos. And that chaos emerges when you are failing to be able to actually do the right thing, right? So what we need to look at doing is changing that trajectory so that we can move in a different direction and fix some of the problems that we have. And to do that, that's going to mean people being humbled. And if they're not humbled, they're going to have to be humiliated until they're willing to be humble. There are a lot of great things about this country. A lot of amazing people. One of the things that has infected you and is now metastasizing in you is the fact that your system is not only broken, it's corrupted. It's killing you. And for it to be fixed is a tall tale that you tell yourself while you're doing the same thing. You can't fix what you're not willing to admit is wrong and what you're not willing to let go of and change how you do it. You can't have it both ways. That's duplicitous. It's also an unsteadied mind. It's irrational. It's not just irrational. It's because of pride. And there wherein is your corruption. So the question here is, at what point will your greed outstrip the pace of your ability to change your trajectory and create calamity that will come upon you? You know, you have so much potential, but that potential is wasted by your avarice and your hubris. And your avarice and your hubris is born of pride and driven by fear and confusion. You see not and you hear not, and you comprehend not your predicament. Thusly, you're balkanized, you're fractured, you're divided, and you've become tribalistic, which exponentially increases the severity of your predicament. That is what happens when you sow the wind and set up the conditions for the whirlwind. Now you were helped to it, but unless you deal with your problems and continue down the path that you've been going and not humbly admit what you've done and be willing to make amends and turn around from it, you'll continue creating a worse predicament. And you're hitting points of convergence where you are not going to be able to change that predicament much longer. That's the point where denial of your predicament and the reality of your predicament come into conflict. And I can tell you which one is going to win that battle. It's not your denial. If you see not and you hear not, is because you've chosen to to not see nor hear, and that is denial. I'll watch you do it every single day. The public and the private sector, and individually in your lives. What we call that is turning your blessings into curses. And when you do that, you major on the minors and you create more confusion, which leads to more chaos and more catastrophic entropic conditions, worsening your predicament. Quite a predicament to be in. So, you can't have a seaworthy ship if you only build half the hull and leave the rest exposed to the elements. Likewise, you can't have a healthy, functioning society raising some up while you're putting others down. And that is precisely what you've done and what you're doing. You don't even know the words that you use. You don't even realize that you're being edited by your own avarice and hubris and lack of awareness at what's going on in you and around you, individually and collectively as a nation. That too only worsens your predicament. That's what I mean when I warn about having gone the way of Babylon, having chosen to go that direction. You can bottom feed solutions, ideas, other people's work. You can plunder them and try to cover yourself with the fig leaves of your own works and your own wisdom, but it will not suffice. It will only exponentially increase the coming consequences of your worsening predicament. And when that happens with people and or nations, that paradigm is what precedes the fall. And what precedes the fall as well? Pride comes before the fall. If you cannot see that by now, you probably don't know what the hell you're doing, and you probably shouldn't be in a position of leadership, of power, or authority, nor have been put there by others because you are not competent enough, nor have the character to be in those positions and have that power and authority. Because to whom much is given, much is required. So the question to you is quite simply this: what are you going to do now that you are reaching the convergence of all your maladies and your denial and your pride and your avarice and your hubris on the eve of your destruction, your fall? When you jettison truth and love, you jettison the foundations for justice and mercy from humble and contriteness of heart. And you increase the pride in society and the blindness in the people, places, and things of that society, leading to more fear and confusion in the society, which gives birth ultimately to a whirlwind of chaos and destruction in that society. It's something to consider, and I hope that you do consider it. As it is for people, so too it is for nations, even our own nation, America. So here we are. Yes, here we are. I'm taking my late night walk, pondering a long day, at looking at the state of affairs in our own country and around the world. And every single day, I come to the same conclusion, that this world is reaching a point at which, here in America in particular, when people do what's right in their own eyes, they exchange the truth for a lie and lean on their own understanding and pride. They only increase the fear, confusion, and chaos that comes with such avarice and hubris. There is a darkness over this land and over many of the people here, and over your institutions, public and private sector. What do you think it means when occasionally I put on my profile, on a post, do not be caught asleep. You need to wake up so that you're not asleep when the Son of Man comes, lest you be caught naked and ashamed. What do you think that means? I mean, you think that's literal? You need to stay up 24/7? No, that's not what it means. Some interesting parallels. When Jesus said that, it applies directly to the seventh letter to the seventh church in the book of Revelation. Who's wealthy, has need of nothing, but cannot see how naked, blind, and poor she really is. I would say that accurately describes what I'm seeing in a lot of our society here in America today. Now that is an interesting connection. Do not be caught asleep when the Son of Man comes, lest you be caught naked and ashamed. Now here's another one. When it talks about Mystery Babylon, she won't be humbled. So what happens? She's stripped naked, burned with fire, and her flesh is devoured. Couldn't possibly be connected to the other two statements, could it? Or is it? Do you understand now why it is I warned you about going the way of Babylon? Do you understand why it is I say the things I do to you as to the consequences of sowing the wind and reaping the whirlwind? It is a never-ending cycle in the temporal world that humanity runs over and over and over and over again, until it finally is stopped and the final consequences are rendered. And the costs of rerunning the same things over and over and over again and being in denial of them creates the ultimate predicament. Can you not see what you have become and are becoming due to your fear and confusion? Can you not see that you have become the thing that you fear the most in many ways? Because you will not let go of it, because it requires you relinquish your pride. But you won't do that, will you? That's why you will be humbled or humiliated, and you will see how naked, blind, and poor you really are. Well, that is up to you, and the consequences thereof are as well. If you refuse to take responsibility for the things that you do, then you're unwilling to learn from them, which means that you will continue to repeat them with ever increasing consequences and costs. When you do the same thing over and over again that is destructive to you and to others, and refuse to learn the lesson, but yet every time you do it, expect a different result that you never get, that's insanity. It is the definition of intellectual, spiritual blindness and a lack of vision. It is why we say, when there are leaders that are like that, where the leaders have no vision, the people perish. And in our form of government here, where the people have no vision, they're complicit and complacent and self-deceived and deluded, and they choose leaders like themselves, creating the conditions for their consequences because they refuse to take responsibility for their own actions and be willing to change them and learn from their mistakes. That's pride. And pride comes before the fall. You can blame it on everything and everyone else, but in the end, it is yours to take responsibility for, and you will, one way or another. You know what technology is? Knowledge, apart from the wisdom of God. It is a mirror which you gaze upon your own wisdom and works that reflects back to you what you want to see and hear until such time as it brings you to destruction. It is vanity. And vanity is what? Pride. There's a point coming, and I would say is even here now, where the mirror is not going to tell you what you want to hear and show you what you want to see. Instead, it's going to expose you for what you've become and what you are. And then you will either be humiliated or humbled. It's time to wake up. Consider what I'm telling you, because everything I'm saying to you is applicable for people as it is for nations, including this one. What are we going to do? Do you know what I mean by that? What is it we can do to help our brothers and sisters and increase the opportunities? Check, 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 check. So let me ask you, what do you actually think you are here for? Are you here only to suffer through life? No. You are here to fight a war. A war that most people don't even realize they're in. A war that most people would prefer to ignore even when they do know it. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to be a soldier, a prisoner, or a casualty? The choice is yours. So what are you going to do? What is your choice? What is it going to be? So ask yourself what the point is of a life that's meant to be lived in victory over your circumstances. What does that mean to you? What does it look like to you? Why would I even ask that? I mean, after all, who are we? Well, if you don't know who you are, it's very difficult to live life in a way that makes much sense, much less have any victory in your life when your enemy wants to keep you from understanding exactly who you are. Now think about that. Think about what I am broadcasting to you. I am transmitting to you. And why would I be doing that? Why would I transmit to you something that makes you think, makes you question? Isn't it better not to have to question everything? Oh, no. Consider what I'm saying to you. I want you to think about the fact that the war that you are in is one that you can try to deny, you can pretend doesn't exist, but nevertheless, it is what it is, and what it is real. Most people are terrified of what they might see if the veil was pulled back and the truth about the reality that they have their lives lived out in were to become clear and present to them. Now, why do you think that is? Why is it that people choose lies over the truth so often? What does it profit them, either in the short term or the long term? What do they gain out of it, other than something that is fleeting? I mean, that's a poor investment, wouldn't you say? If you're investing into something that has only a temporal gain and one that is perishable, does it make a lot of sense to put so much stock in it? Yet that's what most people do in their lives here in this world. But still, it's irrational. Yet we call what is rational in this world irrational, and we've got it all backwards. So often we just have it all backwards. And we wonder why things go sideways. We wonder why things don't work the way we would like them to. Well, when you're in a war, your adversary is intent upon keeping you from knowing who you are, what you are, and how you have been deceived. Because the moment that you figure out who you really are is the moment that the war is won. It just has to play out in the here and now. Because the truth is what sets you free, and the truth is exactly what your adversary wants to keep you from. So what does that make your adversary? Well, a liar, of course. And a lie rules with what? False evidence appearing real. And what is false evidence appearing real? Fear. And what always comes with fear? Confusion. You see? Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm saying? And why I'm telling you this? That's why it is so incredibly important to understand who you are, who God is, how He made you, and how much He loves you, and why it is the truth is so important for you to come to know, so that you can be freed from the lies that have long kept you from knowing who you are and what you are capable of. Because the moment that you do, you become a soldier. not a prisoner, a warrior. And that changes everything. It changes everything about how you see the world, how you perceive things, and how it is that you can live your life without constantly being enslaved to the chains of fear, lies, confusion. And being free in such a manner also, in the most incredible way, has a macro level impact on the world around you for good. You see, the beauty of who you really are in Christ is far beyond anything you might have considered in your most grandiose day. You see, the delusions of grandiosity are counterfeits of the real. And those counterfeits of the real, right, are meant to keep you from the real, because once you find out the real truth, you are not a slave. You are not doing the work of the very thing, right? The very enemy that is using you against your own best interests. And that is radical. It's radically dangerous to the enemy. It's also radically important to the rest of us that are your brothers and sisters. That's why we need you. That's why we search for you. That's why we fight for you. That's why we don't give up on you. Starting to make sense a little bit? Just a little, maybe? I mean, just consider it. Just consider the possibility, just the possibility that what I'm telling you is true. And that you have a lot more to lose by not investigating it and accepting who and what you think you are apart from the truth. You have lost and been conned out of something much greater, much more beautiful, much more powerful, and that is why you are in a war. And that war comes to do what? Kill, steal, right? Deceive, divide, destroy, distort, dilute, and devour. You have much more to gain by giving it a shot to see if we are right. And if we are, you might be absolutely amazed at who and what you really are and what you are going to be able to do, be able to see, be able to comprehend and understand. And it will not only give you authority and power, but it will also keep you humble. You will be both humble and completely courageous at the same time. See, most people think humility, a lot of people think that humility has nothing to do with being courageous. That's not true. You cannot be truly courageous without being humble. Because pride corrupts, and pride creates contrivances. That's what it does. It creates contrivances. Shadows of the real, if you will. So, think about that and the possibilities of that, and we'll talk more about it and their own thinking. Fear will cause you to make very unwise decisions. Now, there's something else I want you to consider. I want you to consider the fact that all of these people suddenly rose up all at one time, saying the same things, buying into the same narratives, and all claiming to be victims of one sort or another in the middle of a pandemic, supposedly. Now, why do you think that is? Why is it that in the middle of crisis, when everybody should be pulling together and working together, these people are desiring more and more control over everyone else? And they seem constitutionally incapable of being able to entertain any ideas or concepts, or even have dialogue with those that may disagree with them in any kind of form whatsoever. While they are proclaiming that they desire safety, peace, and security, what are they actually creating? Think about it. What is the outcome of their perspectives, their points of view, their actions, and their words? Is it more safety? Is it more peace? And is it leading to more security? Or is it actually all of the opposite? I think you would have to be lying to yourself and sticking your head in the sand of the seashore to say that we are in a safer, more secure, and peaceful society. We've had mammoth riots, cities burning, total chaos, a breakdown of our systems of government and of commerce, and a destruction of social interaction. And overnight, instead of people being brought together to work together across the spectrum, one side is taking advantage of everything, claiming to be victims, and totally ruled by fear. We have a system that is broadcasting fear, confusion, and threats and delusion upon our public. That's why I say no one has done more damage to Americans than Americans. Not all Americans. But you have to ask yourself, what are the statistical probabilities of all of these things lining up in the same time, at the same space, all at once? Not very good. The statistical probabilities are very high, meaning that they're not divergent, they are convergent. And what you're witnessing is something much deeper than just differences of opinions. And you are seeing a calculated and coordinated effort to mislead, to confuse, and ultimately deceive and gain power over in the chaos that's created by them. That is the nature of psychotic behavior, criminal behavior, authoritarian and tyrannical behavior, and psychopathy. You are being intimidated, socially engineered, manipulated, deceived, and forced into complicity with people that have neither the grounds to stand on nor the Constitution intellectually, spiritually, morally, ethically, or even factually. The things that they project on others, they are actually creating the conditions for at every level. And when you apply that at the nation-state level, you have to ask yourself, what is coming next? Well, I can tell you some of those things and you won't like it. But you reap what you sow, and what they have sown, they will reap. Unfortunately, the entire nation will have to reap it with them, which will ultimately turn everybody else against them when they no longer can hide behind their rhetoric, their self-deception, their control of systems, and their delusion will come crashing down to the ground. And most likely, what's left of our nation at that time. And it will be costly in actual lives, in freedom, in liberty, in money, in relationships, and all the things that you value and hold dear in this world and in this country, regardless of where you are on the left or the right. That is what occurs in such times.